Hey everybody, David here from DIY Mountain Bike. Today I'm going to take you through my little journey painting my first mountain bike. This bike is my daughter's boyfriend's. I thought it would be a fun little project to modernize it, and I thought about $100 I could probably paint it, get into my parts bin and fix it up, call it modernized with a bunch of parts that I have. As usual, these projects kind of turned into a little bit higher cost and a little bit longer than what I originally anticipated. But the lucky thing is I get to take you through my little painting journey, give you the tips that I learned, the lessons, and what I would do a little bit different. So stay tuned. I'm going to show you some before and after. I'm really happy with how this turned out. Still debating whether I would do this again. It would have to be another passion project, and I'm cool with that because it's family. Let's get into the details of my first time using a rattle can to paint a bike. Let's start by taking a look at where this bike began. It had its fair share of scratches and rust. Paint was worn out, definitely showing its age. This is a 2010 Trek 820. It's been ridden hard and put away, a little bit muddy and dirty. And here's the finished results. Glossy black finish with a couple little decals to give it a fresh, updated look. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. First things first, I had to take the bike apart. I removed the wheels, pedals, handlebars, and everything else that didn't want to get paint on. I tried to keep the parts organized. Trust me, it'll save a lot of time in the future when it's time to put everything back together. Next, I got to work prepping the frame. I sanded it down, focusing on blending the old decals and smoothing out the surface. I did not go down to bare metal. I sanded just enough to smooth everything down and get it where things would stick really nice. Before applying the primer, I gave the frame a good wipe down with acetone to remove any oil, dust, residue. Acetone works great to make sure a surface is clean and ready for paint. I also masked all the openings I didn't want to get paint into. After that, I went for the primer. I used Rust-Oleum Automotive Sandable Primer in black. I bought 2 cans for around $30. I applied 2 light coats, which helped smooth everything out nicely and hide a lot of the minor scratches. This primer is really forgiving and a solid choice for a first-time painting project like what I'm doing. Once the primer was dry, I sanded it with 400 grit wet dry paper. This really helped get a smooth surface and covered a lot of the original scratches. A quick but valuable step to get a good base color for the bike. For color, I used the Krylon Black Fusion all-in-one in a high gloss. I bought 2 cans of this paint for about $15, and I just barely started using the second can to finish the bike. Put a thin first coat on and ran out of time that day. I let that coat dry for a full 2 days to make sure it was good and set. Once that first coat was dry, I wet sanded it with 1000 grit sandpaper to make sure it was nice and smooth, and then I gave it another wipe down before moving on to the next coats. I followed up with 2 more thin coats of the black Krylon, giving about 15 minutes between each coat as recommended. These final coats gave the bike a rich, glossy finish that I was aiming for. With the color done, it was time to add some decals. I chose red Trek decals and a fun shake and bake decal as well. The decals cost just under $8, and I have a couple left over still. I think they add a nice pop of character to the bike. Plus, I'm planning on adding more red accents with components like a saddle and a chainring. To protect the decals and give everything a nice glossy finish, I used Rust-Oleum Universal All-Surface Clear Top Coat. I applied a few light coats to keep everything smooth, but if I were to do this again, I'd probably go with a 2K clear coat for an even harder, faster setting finish. I struggled while putting the clear coat on. The wind was up that day and I was starting to get a little impatient. Anyhow, these 2 cans of clear coat cost right around $20. So my little paint job cost just over $70. Now that's using my existing 1000 grit and 400 grit paper, my alcohol and acetone I already had. I purchased the primer for about $30, $15 for 2 cans of black, the clear coat $20, and about $8 in decals. Gives me a total of $73. I'm going to have links to all the items I talked about plus the recommendations that I would also buy down below. So next, let's talk about the things I would do a little bit different. I think I would break down and spend maybe 70 extra bucks. I think I'd get a variety pack of sandpaper, you know, from 1,000 to 2,500. It only cost about $6-7. I could have done that. I'd get that 2K paint I talked about. It just sets up so much faster. I was spraying on a windy day, and if I had that harder finish, a faster setting finish, I think I'd end up with a little bit better finish on the bike. I would have also got a good respirator for the 2K because it is a little bit toxic, so you don't want to be breathing that stuff. Also, I would probably get a rubbing compound, polishing compound like a Meguiar's. Maybe $15-17 for some good polishing compound. Really bring that luster up after applying that clear coat and knocking down those little imperfections in that top coat. Alright, so one more time I gotta say this, a word to the wise: avoid spraying paint on windy days. Honestly, another thing I'd probably do is skip the black paint. Next time I'd go for something like a blue or a dark green or a burgundy, something to give it a little bit more color, a little bit more pop. I think it would also hide the imperfections just a little bit. I'd also plan out the full bike build, right? Think about the colors and accents I would do on the bike. You know, add some extra decals because I think that came out really cool. Maybe some different grips with color, a stem cap, valve caps, you know, really things that make the bike pop. I was digging into my little stash of parts and I wanted to kind of keep the price down, although I ran it up to nearly $300 by the time I was done. But most of that is going towards a new fork, which is about 3 times more than I planned, but that's okay. This is a passion project. I do want to ask, at like that $100, $150, or even $300, how much would you guys plan on spending for a bike rebuild like this? What would you spend? What makes it worth it? So I'm at around that $300 mark. A lot of that's going towards a new fork, which you're going to see later when I'm building this bike. But let me know in the comments if you would spend $300 to fix up this 2010 Trek. Give it away as a little passion project to your daughter's boyfriend. Overall, I'm really happy with how this turned out. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect, but I do like how the color turned out. I do like that it's way better than the bike was before. I'm hoping my daughter's boyfriend loves this bike, makes him proud to get on it and ride again. So a lot of fun things happening with this bike. Really want to invite you to subscribe because I got a lot going on with this bike. We're going to be putting on a 1x drivetrain. I'm converting the rear wheel from a free wheel over to a cassette. We'll be putting a 9-speed on it, some nice new components on the handlebars, some grips, some other good stuff. This is definitely a passion project for me, so I would love it if you stay tuned and subscribe to keep up with this project. Thanks. Keep pedaling.